NordCast here on WOBL, and here's your host, Nord Center CEO Don Schiffbauer.
Hi, and welcome everybody to our 5th episode of the NordCast. My name is Don Schiffbauer, and I am the Chief Executive Officer for the Nord Center here in Lorain County. And as with every episode, for those of you that are not familiar with our agency, the Nord Center is a nonprofit community behavioral health center. What does that mean? Well, we're a community behavioral health center centered in Lorain County. We're the largest provider of behavioral health services for our area. And we also have a footprint in Huron County, right across from Fisher-Titus Hospital. And it doesn't matter where you're from, anyone can receive services from our team of skilled clinicians, regardless of their ability to pay. And our agency has 5 core programs. And those programs include adult behavioral health, crisis services, sexual assault services, including rape crisis for adults and children, and we'll be highlighting that service next month, residential services, and then child and adolescent behavioral health. In today's episode, we'll continue to explore not only what our programs are, but who they help and the positive impact that they have on the health of our community. And we'll also highlight our relationship with other agencies in our community and how those important collaborations are centered around you. In today's episode, we'll explore the upcoming weekend events benefiting mental health and substance abuse, as well as veterans' mental health, including what is the state of mental health care for our veterans, and how can interested community members support the cause of mental health, addiction, and suicide prevention in our community by taking part in our inaugural 5K run, 1 mile walk, Mind Over Miles event that will be taking place on October 13th. More about that later. And then what other resources are available for people in crisis, as well as you're going to hear from our guests about some of the warning signs for family and friends to pay attention to. According to the National Veterans Suicide Prevention Annual Report from September of 2022, in 2020, there were a staggering 6,146 veteran suicides. If you're doing the math, that's on average just under 17 suicides per day in our country. And in 2020, there were 343 fewer veteran suicides than in 2019. And the number of suicides was lower than each prior year since 2006 In 2020, adjusting for the population, age, and sex differences, the suicide rate for veterans was 57.3% greater than non-veterans. There is still a lot of work to be done. And today, we're going to learn from our guests, Bret Buike and Dee Bermudez, the challenges that are facing our veteran population, some of the resources that may be available in our community for the behavioral health problems that are being experienced by our veteran community members, but not only for the veterans, but the support and what family and friends can look for in terms of signs or symptoms of mental health or substance use disorder with their veteran family members. And how can we better support not only in our agency, but those resources in the community for the veterans in our community. So we've got a information-packed show. We're going to take a little break, and when we come back, we'll hear from our 2 guests, Bret Buike and Dee Bermudez. Bret Buike and Dee Bermudez on this very important topic. So stick around and don't go anywhere.
When I smoke weed, I get lost in the music. I like to isolate each instrument. The rhythmic bass, the harmonies on the piano, the sticky melody.
Hey, careful, babe. There's someone crossing the street.
Sorry, I didn't see him there.
If you feel different, you drive different. Don't drive high. It's dangerous and illegal everywhere. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Need money for after-school and educational programs for your child? Qualifying families can receive $1,000 per child through Ohio's after-school child enrichment accounts. Funds received by a parent or guardian can be used on a number of educational activities, including tutoring, day camps and field trips, language and music lessons, and much more. You can find the full list of how funds can be spent and begin the process of receiving your educational account. Find out if your family qualifies by visiting aceohio.org today.
Sponsored by the Ohio Department of Education, aired by OAB and this station. put your phone on D&D. That means do not disturb when you're driving. And when you're going from point A to B, I need you to stay safe, please, so always sing with me. So put your phone on D&D. That means do not disturb when you're driving. And when you're going from point A to B, I need you to stay safe, please, so always remember this beat.
Don't drive distracted. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Lake Erie. Dozens of beaches dot the shoreline. And thanks to Adopt-A-Beach cleanup volunteers, more of these precious spots are healthier, safer, and beautiful. Alliance for the Great Lakes wants you to join this movement with thousands of others that get out each year and make a real difference. About 85% of beach litter is plastic, but with your help, we're cleaning it up. It's fun, easy, and means so much. Go to greatlakes.org/adopt and join us on the beach.
All right, everybody, we are back for our second segment, and to do a deeper dive, we're going to bring in our first guest, Mr. Bret Buike. And Mr. Bret Buike is one of our members of our board of directors at the Nord Center. And before I go on pontificating about you, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, happy to do that. So, thanks for being here. I appreciate you having me on the show to talk about these events and all the good work that the Nord Center is doing. Like you said, my name is Bret Buike. Everybody calls me Buckeye Bret. Born and raised here in Lorain County, grew up in Grafton, and living in Avon Lake now with my wife and 5 children, 4 boys, 1 girl. Oh, sorry, backwards. 4 girls, 1 boy. Thank goodness. Thank goodness.
Well, I'll tell you what, we appreciate you being here along with Dee, and we're going to get right into it. So your personal efforts over the last couple of years on behalf of people impacted by substance abuse and veterans impacted by mental health issues were an inspiration for our upcoming 5K. And I'd like you to take a little bit of time and tell our listeners about that story and how we got to where we are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So it started out 2 years ago. So this is the 3rd time that I've done the Goggins Challenge, which we're going to talk about and explain here a little bit. And it started out just kind of as a personal mission for me. The Goggins Challenge is kind of like an extreme running event. And for my 40th birthday, I decided I was going to try and do something to give back to the community that supports drug and alcohol addiction and veteran suicide and mental health because of some losses in my family. And, so talking about that, it still definitely doesn't get any easier. But 13 years ago, I lost my sister-in-law to a heroin overdose. And in 2017, I lost my nephew, who was an Army veteran, to suicide shortly after returning home from Iraq. And so those 2 things were things as an uncle and a brother-in-law that hit me pretty hard, and I dealt with them personally for quite a while, and kind of carried the guilt and held the burden as many family members who lost someone do. And I just decided that I was going to do something about it, and I was going to do this little charity thing and tap into my personal network and see what could happen. And that first year, myself and Bob Lawton decided to do this event, and our goal was to raise $5,000. And we thought that was a pretty lofty goal at the time. And so we started talking about it on social media, and kind of I was being very open and honest about, my personal feelings and struggles with it. And apparently a lot of people connected with it because in about 6 weeks' time, we raised $42,000. And we were able to donate that money to, the Nord Center Recovery Resources to support, drug and alcohol addiction and, veteran mental health and suicide, which then turned into a second event, which was, now almost $75,000. And then, that brings us to today, where now this isn't just some, Facebook campaign and a GoFundMe. It's, I found myself on the board of directors for, 2 great organizations, the Nord Center Recovery Resources, and this race has turned into something that should do a really good job at getting a lot of information out to people about how to handle these things, access resources that I didn't even know were available to me when I was trying to help my family members, which has been very enlightening. And also, just promoting the community and raising a lot of money that, your organization will be able to put to some good use.
Well, I'll tell you what, you said at the beginning of your statement, this little event. Well, yeah. it by far is not a little event. And we're very fortunate that you're good friends with one of my colleagues, our Chief Clinical Officer, Dana, and that's how we were made the introduction. And the Nord Center was very honored to be a beneficiary of your hard work. And hopefully a little later you'll tell our listeners what exactly that Goggins Challenge is. But I want to say that, our two board members that we have here today, we like to have a diverse representation of life experiences on our board of directors. And with the addition of Bret, it complements Dee's police background, military background, but also, Bret, you bring the facet of representing the families of those veterans that are impacted. So, tell our listeners a little bit about the Goggins Challenge and what you'll be doing this year and how people can get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Goggins Challenge was something that was created by a guy named David Goggins. At this point, he's a fairly famous individual on Instagram, Joe Rogan. He's kind of a self-made, really mentally strong person, ex-Navy SEAL. He has participated in every form of special operations training there is. And so he created this mental toughness event, which is essentially an ultra marathon that spans over 48 hours. And you do the event without sleeping. So the goal is to run 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours without sleep. I don't know why he did it. It's not the funnest thing I've ever done, but it is. It's for me. It's a mental toughness thing. It's about what can you put yourself and your body through, and it's also very much just one of those, because I've attached this personal connection to raising money for this cause. It's a very kind of emotional, overwhelming and, physically demanding challenge. And because of the celebrity of David Goggins and, health and exercising being kind of, cool things to do nowadays, it's generated a lot of support for the event. And I've been just very lucky to participate.
Yeah, and I would imagine over the last couple of years, it's also generated some participation from people other than yourselves or your colleagues that originally started this. Are there people that participate alongside of you?
Yeah, so I'm not the only crazy person who stays up for 2 days and runs. I've been very lucky that even in the first event, just from talking about it on Facebook, because you run every 4 hours, it's like, midnight, 4 in the morning, 8 in the morning, and I had a bunch of complete strangers reach out to me. And the kind of interesting part was, as I was, being vulnerable and sharing my story, and even, getting to the point of being a little emotional while I was talking about, the loss of my loved ones, people started messaging me and sending me pictures and telling me stories about, my son died when he was 19, and I lost my husband, or, I lost my brother. And so you show up at 4 o'clock in the morning, you're exhausted. You're already emotionally charged, and then you meet someone for the first time who shares this with you, and it's kind of like, this is pretty cool. And yeah. I guess I wasn't expecting that. And at one event, it was like at 8 o'clock at night, and we had 38 people show up. And I knew a handful of them, and the rest of them were just people from the community who showed up to be supportive. Not all of them could run 4 miles. Some of them rode a bike along with us. Some of them just kind of walked, the 1 mile. And, it was just, so you can participate in a lot of different ways. You can just donate. You can run the whole thing with me. Some people this year are setting up like relay teams where they get a couple of their friends, and they don't run the whole thing, but everybody runs at least one race with me. And I can assure you that your participation, especially in those early mornings, is greatly appreciated, because I'm pretty tired.
Yeah, well, we certainly appreciate you being a beacon for those people and a point of reference in which people can, put resources towards people impacted, specifically our veterans, around substance use and mental health. So I appreciate you sharing that story, but we got to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk to our next guest, Dee Bermudez. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Family dinners, game nights, and holiday parties. It all happens at home. June is Home Ownership Month, and the Ohio Housing Finance Agency, Departments of Commerce and Insurance, want to help Ohioans realize the dream of home ownership. Visit myohiohome.org for more information on how to find a real estate agent, down payment assistance, and more. If you're ready to buy a home, help is available. Visit myohiohome.org. Home ownership. Make it a part of your future. Sponsored by the Ohio Housing Finance Agency and aired by the Ohio Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Together.
Juntos.
Together.
We stand up to cancer.
On Saturday, August 19th, join Stand Up to Cancer for all the inspiration.
Together, we can stand up for our family and friends and everyone who is battling this disease.
Celebrating all the progress and innovation.
So just stand up with us.
One night to save lives. Join the millions in the fight against cancer. Tune in Saturday, August 19th at 8/7 Central on ABC, CBS, Fox, and NBC. For more ways to watch, visit standuptocancer.org.
If you have Ohio Medicaid, you need to act now. All Medicaid members are required to renew their health coverage. If you are no longer eligible, trained navigators can help for free. Call Get Covered Ohio at 833-628-4467 or visit getcoveredohio.org. This project is supported by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services as part of a financial assistance award totaling $2.33 million with 100% funding by CMS/HHS and do not necessarily represent the official views of the U.S. government. Sponsored by the Ohio Association of Food Banks, aired by OAB and the station.
Get on board.
The water is open. It's time to go boating and fishing and leave stress in our wake. Feel the wind as we ride and a fish on the line. Reel in our first catch and feel the sun at our backs. It's get out on the water season. It's time to get on board. Find out where to get on board near you. Visit Take Me Fishing and Discover Boating to learn more. And please recreate responsibly.
Get on board. Get on board.
All right, everybody, we are back, and we are going to be talking to our next guest, Dee Bermudez. Dee Bermudez, as I stated earlier in the program, is one of our members of our board of directors, and Dee has been on our board of directors for about how many years now?
More than 2.
Okay. Well, that's a great segue into letting you tell us a little bit more about yourself, the experience that you bring, and also your experience being involved with the mental health organizations, not only ours, but also with the previous mental health board.
Okay. So I was born and raised in Lorain. When I was 18, I joined the Air Force and spent 10 years on active duty. When I got out in 93, I joined the police department, the Elyria Police Department, and I'm retired. I've been retired for 2-3 years. I also, during that time, I was with the Army Reserves, so I spent 10 years in the Army Reserves, and I retired from the Army Reserves in 2002. Part of my duties as a police officer, I became involved with the crisis intervention team, and that was started by the Mental Health Board, Lorain County Mental Health Board, for local police departments to get an idea of how to diffuse and relate to people with mental health problems and that. So, and I did that since like 2000, so until I retired, yeah. And during that time, we've trained other departments, other police officers. Every year we had, the first few years we had two training sessions, and then after that it was down to one training session a year. And we just spent a week and talked to officers about what was available in Lorain County as far as the help for mental health, people with mental health crisis problems and things like that, and just a general overview of the kinds of mental health problems that you might encounter as part of your day-to-day duties, and how to respond and how to help people get through their crisis.
Sure.
Things like that.
Well, it's very evident, Dee, that you bring quite a bit of experience to our board of directors. And as a military veteran yourself, and the years that you've been involved with the mental health discipline, how do you see the state of mental health for veterans today? How has it evolved? You know, we heard about the number of suicides and the trend that we're seeing over the years, but you yourself as a military veteran, how do you how do you feel the progress of making sure that our veterans have access to mental health services?
I think compared to when I was in the service, I'll be honest with you, I've never heard of any kind of organizations or anything like that. I'm sure if somebody was actively, seeking and was with the Veterans Administration, the VA hospital and things like that, they might have some kind of contact with people to help them and everything. But as far as just somebody out in the public and not having any kind of association with the Veterans Administration, other than having served, there was really no kind of services for them. But I've seen nowadays where they're reaching out. There's more services. There's more local organizations within Lorain County that help people, veterans.
Do you think there's more of an effort today to decrease the stigma associated with?
Yeah, there's definitely more visibility. And like I said before, I mean, I got out in 2002, and I really hadn't heard of anything, other than what was available for police officers as far as helping people with mental problems and that. But nowadays you do hear about it, and you see different kind of outreach programs that the Veterans Administration are trying to bring to the veterans.
They certainly didn't exist before.
Yeah.
For sure. So it's becoming more and more prevalent for sure.
Yeah, I think if they did exist, that it was in Cleveland, and you had to go to Cleveland or Brook Park or something like that to get the services.
Cool. So I think when people think of mental health and veterans, I think the first thing that comes to mind is PTSD. But what do you wish people were more aware about? What do you wish people were more aware of when they think about mental health and veterans?
I think that basically they're no different than anybody else. They've just experienced some intense trauma maybe. And that's brought things up to the surface, whereas maybe more so than somebody that didn't serve. But I think that stigma of PTSD, it's kind of like short-sighted, because everybody in their lives at one time or another have experienced something that possibly impacted them.
Yeah, and I don't think all the time those stressors and those traumatic events will manifest themselves as post-traumatic stress disorder, because what we've seen in behavioral health and substance use disorder is that each individual reacts in their own unique way. So it could be PTSD, it could be a bout of anxiety or depression. And I think your insight on that, what you said at the beginning of your statement was, they're people too, and they're not to be treated any different than the civilians within our community that may be suffering from behavioral health or substance use disorder. Bret, I'm going to go over to you. From a family and friend standpoint, what do you think family and friends need to know about more when it comes to the signs and symptoms? And I'll tell you what, before we get into that, I'm looking at the clock here. We're going to take a quick break and come back to that, so stick around.
When I smoke weed, I get lost in the music. I like to isolate each instrument. The rhythmic bass, the harmonies on the piano, the sticky melody.
Hey, careful, babe. There's someone crossing the street.
Sorry, I didn't see him there.
If you feel different, you drive different. Don't drive high. It's dangerous and illegal everywhere. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Need money for after-school and educational programs for your child? Qualifying families can receive $1,000 per child through Ohio's after-school child enrichment accounts. Funds received by a parent or guardian can be used on a number of educational activities, including tutoring, day camps and field trips, language and music lessons, and much more. You can find the full list of how funds can be spent and begin the process of receiving your educational account. Find out if your family qualifies by visiting aceohio.org today.
Sponsored by the Ohio Department of Education, aired by OAB and this station.
Put your phone on D&D. That means do not disturb when you're driving. And when you're going from point A to B, I need you to stay safe, please, so always sing with me. So put your phone on D&D. That means do not disturb when you're driving. And when you're going from point A to B, I need you to stay safe, please, so always remember this beat.
Don't drive distracted. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Lake Erie. Dozens of beaches dot the shoreline. And thanks to Adopt-A-Beach cleanup volunteers, more of these precious spots are healthier, safer, and beautiful. Alliance for the Great Lakes wants you to join this movement with thousands of others that get out each year and make a real difference. About 85% of beach litter is plastic, but with your help, we're cleaning it up. It's fun, easy, and means so much. Go to greatlakes.org/adopt and join us on the beach.
All right, we are back for our third segment of our show. Actually, third, maybe fourth segment. But did you know, before we get any further, that the Nord Center employs over 275 people to carry out our mission of mental health work and substance use disorder within our community. We've got a terrific team, and we're often looking for new team members. There's a wide variety of positions available, which you can see by visiting our website, nordcenter.org/careers. And you can even apply online. And some of our programs are 24/7 in operation and offer flexible schedules. So again, we're fortunate to have two of our board members here, Dee Bermudez and Bret Buike, to discuss with us today their experiences and resources for veterans experiencing mental health and substance use disorder within our community. Also, how we can support suicide prevention in this population and how the how communities can help agencies in working in these areas. So we're going to get back into some more of our questions. And Bret, before we went to break, we talked about, the question to Dee was, what do you wish more people would know about veterans that are suffering from mental health or substance use disorders? But Bret, to your experience, what do you wish family and friends knew in terms of what to look for? Because I would imagine you probably did some replaying of events in your mind thinking, what could I have seen sooner? I think that's only natural for anybody to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I asked myself a bunch, what could I have done? What should I have done? Did I get involved enough? And, nobody wants to, necessarily get in somebody's business or try and manage their life. And, we all kind of want to handle these situations with kid gloves. And I know the approach that I took with my sister-in-law, who ultimately I lost, to a heroin overdose, was pretty aggressive. I was very involved. I mean, I had her living in my house. I made her go everywhere with me. And what it boiled down to is I literally took my eye off of her for one day. And I blamed myself for it for forever. I still do, right? Like they say, it's not your fault, but it is. And the thing that I wish people knew was I didn't have to figure it out on my own. I didn't need her to come to you guys. I could have come to you guys and had the right tools. I didn't have the right tools, so I just did what I know how to do. I just manned up and I tried to micromanage the process. I can fix this because I'm me, and I didn't have the right tools. And I've said multiple times, had I gotten to you guys sooner, maybe she'd still be here. So
yeah.
So I guess the short answer to that question is, if you think something's wrong and you don't know how to handle it, go to somebody who does. And then that's the best thing you could do. Because my advice is for me, is for my situation. And what you're dealing with might be different. But if Katie was sick today and she was here, I wouldn't have gone it alone.
Yeah. At the top of your statement, you talked about, minding your own business or not getting into other people's business. And when we think about stigma reduction with regards to mental health and physical health are not dissimilar at all. What's going on up here in your head is no different than what's going on right here in your chest. And if Katie would have had a limp or a sore arm or a sore shoulder, you wouldn't have hesitated to say, hey, I know a great orthopedic person that you should go see. Yep. Because that's okay to talk about. But when it comes to mental health and substance use disorder, the the general population is still taken back by the stigma associated with it. And I think what we're trying to do here at the Nord Center, along with our colleagues like the Mental Health Addiction and Recovery Services Board, the Lakota Way, Let's Get Real, is we want to make sure that people are in a state where they can talk about mental health and substance use disorder no different than if they were going to talk about somebody that had short of breath, or maybe they had diabetes, or maybe they do have an orthopedic injury. So achieving that parity between physical medicine and mental health is really, really important. Dee, do you have any observations for family and friends, knowing, what you did with your service in the Air Force and then in the police? Were there things that, any advice that you have for family and friends when they are dealing with a loved one or friend with a mental health or substance use disorder?
I think the best thing that you can do is you know the person, and you're in the best position to know when something's off, when something's different. And when you notice something, maybe it's not blaring at you, and it's just a little niggle in the back of your head that something's not right. Say something, talk to them. What's going on? Is there something? And I do this a lot with my niece too, because I could sense when she's, moody and depressed or something. Is there anything that I can do for you?
I'll tell you, Dee, and our half hour has flown by, and I'm sure we could fill up another 30 minutes talking about this very important issue. But you said something, the people that you know. Mm-hmm. And if you are feeling a little off, if you see something, say something. So I want to thank Bret and Dee again for joining us today. The information and personal experiences that you shared are moving to me. I hope our listeners have found some benefit. And if you're at home and you're dealing with a loved one, a veteran, a law enforcement, EMS, fire, or some other type of public service person, please, if you see something, say something. And I want to call out the 988 crisis line. It's a 24/7 hotline for mental health and substance use disorders. And our time is up. We've enjoyed sharing this information with you, and we look forward to talking with you next month. Have a great day.
The proceeding was a paid informational program. The views and opinions expressed were not necessarily those of the staff, management, or advertisers of WOBL Radio.
WOBL Oberlin.